Hello, class. I realized this evening that I forgot to record this session with the students. It was really more of procedural questions, questions about the course in general. So I thought I would do another video and go over a couple of problems from the text so that if you're having problems programming or you don't understand how to do these kinds of problems, that this will be a couple of examples for you. So I'm going to do problem 1 from page 151 and show you how to do it. And the ones that you're asked to do this week are going to be similar. They're going to have similar steps, similar, you're going to use similar functions and so forth. So hopefully this will help you if you're having problems. If you don't know, I am using Pycharm, which is a tool that you can use for Python and instead of using idle. I prefer using it. I think it has more features. It is easier to use once you get used to it, but you certainly don't have to. You can use the idle program that comes with Python if you wish, and do the same thing and run the same programs. So problem 1 says day of the week. Write a program that asks the user for a number in the range 1 through 7. The program should display the corresponding day of the week. So example 1 is Monday, 2 is Tuesday, etc. It also says that you should display an error message if the user enters a number that is outside of the range 1 through 7. Okay, so the inputs to this program is an integer in the range 1 to 7. An integer is just a number like 1, 2, 3, 100, 1,000. It doesn't have a decimal portion to it. The processing steps is day of the week from the number and print the day of the week. Well, that's actually the output. So the output is okay. So as a reminder that this comment up at the top is is an expected part of your program. I will take points off if you don't include this as part of your program. So it's simple enough to do. If you use 3 quotes here, double quotes, you can put any number of lines you want, and at the end you add another 3 quotes, and that is considered a comment in Python. Okay, there's actually 3 types of comments. This is one of them, and this is a common way to kind of document a program. So the first thing we need to do is get an input from the user, and so we use the input function, which will ask the user to type something in. And we need to assign that to a variable, and we want to name the variable something logical. So we'll call it day of week equals input. And here you can ask a question. It's not required, but you can ask a question of the user. And it's a good idea to give them tell them what's expected, because otherwise they might type in, Monday or Tuesday when we actually want a number, okay? And if you remember from last week, we have to convert the input because by default it's returned as a string, which is just a sequence of characters, and we can't compute with that. So, I mean, we can't add those. We can't add strings together. We can't do any mathematical computations. So in this case, what we want to do is convert it to an actual number, and we do that by a process called casting. And so we cast it to an integer. Okay, so we have to put extra parentheses around it because when we have a function, we pass a value to a function, we have to put parentheses around it. Okay. We haven't really talked about functions, but you'll have to know at least this much about a function in order to get it to work. So what I like to do as I'm programming, I like to print things out as I go to make sure that I'm on the right track. And in order to run this program in Pycharm, the first time we have to right click on the file here and choose run. And then it will print the output at the bottom here. Okay, so here's the question that it poses. And I'm going to put a number in, let's say 1. And it printed 1 out. So far, so good. It's doing what we expect. Realize I forgot to put a question mark there. Okay, and sometimes I like to put a space so it doesn't run together. Okay. So we'll get rid of that. So now we have the day of the week as a number. And what we have to do is compare that number to the number of the day of the week, the corresponding number to see which day it is. Okay. So it'll make more sense when I start here. So if day of week equals 1. Okay, so 1 corresponds to Monday. Now a few things here. In Python, we don't need to. In other languages, we would put parentheses around this this equation here, this equality equation, this comparison. Python, we don't have to do that, but we have to put a colon at the end, and then we have to indent. So if you haven't figured that out by now, indents are important in Python. If you don't have them, then it's usually going to give you an error. Okay, so the indents can be, you really can have any number of spaces when you indent, but it has to be consistent. So you can't, sometimes indent by 2 spaces, sometimes by 3, sometimes by 4. And so the thing to do generally is just to hit the tab key so it indents for you. Okay. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to run it again. So since this is the second time I'm running it, I can just click on this green arrow. Okay. Again, it asks me, I'm going to type 1 because that's the only thing that we recognize at this point. And it prints Monday. Okay, so far so good. So now we'll do another one. So the elif, so if the day of the week is equal to 1, we take this branch and we're done. If it isn't equal to that, then it doesn't take this branch is this part of the code that's indented here. If it doesn't do that, it's going to go on to the next question, or the next decision point, this LF branch, where we say if day of week is equal to 2. Notice we have 2 equal signs here. So that's the comparison operator in Python. If you're comparing 2 things, you have 2 equals. If you're assigning something, like up here, if you're assigning a value to a variable, you have 1 equal signs. If you're comparing it, then you have to have 2. If you don't have 2, you're going to get an error. And I can show you that in a second here. So since it's 2, let's print Tuesday. And run it again. So I'll put 2, it says Tuesday. So if, let's say I just had 1 equal sign here. Let's see what happens. Well, it doesn't even run because that's a syntax error, okay? It doesn't really tell you what the problem is. Sometimes the error messages are not very useful. It does point to the location, but it doesn't tell you what the problem is. So the problem is that we need a equality operator is 2 equal signs. So from then on, really what I would do is just cut and paste because it's essentially the same thing with just different values. So that's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We have to go back. Make sure we get our numbers right. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Okay, now let's run this. Let's pick a random number. 4 is a Thursday, that looks good. 5 is Friday, that's good. So you should generally test your programs with all of the relevant inputs, which means all of the inputs that would change the output. In this case, we only have 7, so we can test all of those, but sometimes we expect a range of numbers and we can't test all the numbers, so we just test ones that could change the output. But we're not quite done because the problem says the program should display an error if the user enters a number that is outside of the range of 1 through 7. So how do we check that? Well, there's a couple ways that we could do it. We could add another if statement where we could say if the number is less than 1 or greater than 7, then we just print an error message. But another way to do it is to add an else branch. The else branch is the part of the if then else statement that is executed if nothing else matches. So if this condition is false and this one is false and this one and this one, so if none of these are true and none of these branches are executed, then the else happens. So if you have an else branch, then that will always be executed if nothing else is true. So if the number that we get doesn't equal any of these numbers, then it must be outside of the range of 1 to 7. And then we can print, something like invalid day of the week entered. Okay, let's try it one more time. This time I'm just gonna print a big number, 90. It says invalid day of the week entered. That's what we want. What if it's a minus number? Same thing. So that's it for that one. Relatively simple. I thought I would do one more, a little bit more complicated. It's number 9, page 153. It's roulette wheel colors. So the problem says, on a roulette wheel, the pockets are numbered from 0 to 36. The colors of the pockets are as follows. 0 is green. 1 through 10, the odd numbered pockets are red, even numbered pockets are black, and etc. I won't read the whole thing. There's several conditions. What's supposed to be output is the color of the pocket, okay? So just like last time, we need to get, so I'll do the inputs. That's simply the pocket number, 0 to 36. Processing, find the color of the pocket number. And finally, print the color. Okay, so like before, we need to get the number and convert it to a number. So pocket number equals, and we know it's an integer. It's not going to be a float. In other words, it's not going to be 3.2 or 10.6. It's always going to be a whole number. And the input function actually will get the input from the user. So again, it's nice to give the user a hint on what actually it's 1 through 36. Nope, it is 0, sorry, 0 to 36. Okay. All right, so now we need to take that number and we need to see what it is, and if it's, depending on the number, it has a certain color. Okay, so the first one is easy. If it's 0, then it's green. So that one's pretty simple. But if it's not green, if it's 1 through 10, then the odd number pockets are red and the even number pockets are black. Okay, so we have a little more complicated condition here. So pocket number is greater than or equal to 1. Okay, so if it's 1 or greater, and pocket number is less than or equal to 10, then we know that the number is between 1 and 10. So if it's greater than or equal to 1, so it's greater than 1 or equal to 1, and it's either less than 10 or equal to 10, so both of those conditions must hold, then we know it's between 1 and 10. But we still have to, we're still not done, because in that case, it says the odd number pockets are red and the even number pockets are black. So how do we figure out if it's odd or even? Well, we can use something called the modulo operator, which was explained in chapter 2, I believe. And that's also called the remainder operator. And so what happens is if you divide a number by another number, it will give you the remainder value. So if you divide 5 by 2, 2 goes into 5 2 times with a remainder of 1. If you divide 4 by 2, 2 goes into 4 2 times, a remainder of 0. So if you divide by 2, the remainder will always be 0 or 1. If the remainder is 0, it's an odd number. If the remainder is 1, it's an even number. So that's an easy way to determine odd and even if you have whole numbers, which I guess that's the only time it would apply, because it doesn't make any sense when you talk about a floating point number. Okay, so how do we do this part? Well, here we have a nested if statement. So inside in the branch of this statement here, we're going to have another if statement. Okay, so if pocket number, this is the modulo operator, 2 is equal to 1. Okay, this is an odd number. Okay, so this is also a comment in Python. We start with this hashtag symbol. Okay, so if it's odd, we print it's red. Else, okay, so if it's not odd, it's even, right? A number is either odd or even, so we don't need to do another test here. So if it's even, then it's black. Okay, so let's test this now to make sure that it's working up to this point. What is the pocket number? 0. Green, okay? That's what we expect. The pocket number is 1. It's supposed to be red. Yep. And if it's 2, it's supposed to be black. And so it's working up to this point. So now it's just a matter of adding the other tests for the other pocket numbers. So for pockets 11 through 18, odd numbered pockets are black and even numbers are red. Okay, so really we can just cut and paste. Right, so if it's between 11 and 18, if it's an odd number, it is black. And even are red. Okay. So the next one is for 9 through 28. Excuse me, 19 through 28. The even numbers or the odd numbers are red. And the even numbers are black. And one more, 29 through 36. So in that case, the odd ones are black and even are red. Okay. And this problem also says that if the user enters a number that's outside of the range, it's supposed to print an error. So like before, if none of these branches are true, then the number has to be outside of the range, because anything in the range we're going to catch. So we can just print something like valid pocket number. Okay, so let's run a few more tests. Let's say it's 15. We get black, and according to the problem statement, it should be black. Okay. I'll just do one more. I'll do one, let's see, if it's 37, it should give us an error message, and it does, invalid pocket number. So it looks like it's working. Okay. So in a problem like this, I will test the program with different inputs. Okay, so some students write a program and they only test it with like 1 or 2 numbers. So, and it works, but I'm going to test it with all of the relevant numbers. Okay, so I'm probably going to test it with a number between 1 and 10, 11 and 18, 19 and 28, etc. Okay, so I'm going to try to test all of your branches. I'm going to try to test, all the parts of your program. So you have to make sure that you test it with, enough inputs to make sure it works in all situations and not just 1 or 2 situations. And sometimes that includes invalid inputs, such as this, where the program is expected to, give some kind of an error message. Okay. So I think that's it. These 2 problems are similar to the ones that are in the homework. And so I think if you understand these, you'll have a good idea of how to do the homework. But if not, let me know, and we can go through it together if we need to. All right, so that's it for this evening, and I will see you later. Bye.